Hello, everyone. I am Haley Price. I am the host of the Art Coaching Club podcast, a podcast built for emerging artists and artists at all levels that are looking to up-level their businesses. So I am really excited for this bonus solo episode today. You haven't heard from me alone on the mic in a while, but I'm really excited about today's topic, which is how to sell on Pinterest. And so the reason I'm really excited about teaching you how to sell on Pinterest is because it's something that's worked for me for forever. And so I'm going to definitely talk about my story with Pinterest, things I've done that have worked, things I've done that have not worked. And then I'm going to let you know that I am teaching a Pinterest workshop on October 31st, 2024, depending on when you're listening to this. So if that is something that you are interested in signing up for, you can definitely access that in the show notes. And I think it's a really great deep dive on a lot of the kind of surface level topics we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about why selling on Pinterest is great, how to sell on Pinterest, and then in that workshop, which is an hour and a half, we will dive deep into what you can do specifically, and it will be a Zoom call, so you'll get to ask me questions and hear from the other artists as well. So to kick things off today with our topic of how to sell on Pinterest as a creative, I first want to tell a little bit about my story. So I have been using Pinterest to market the Scouted Studio for years. And as we're doing this, I'm actually going to pull up the Scouted Studio's Pinterest because its engagement, impressions, all of these things that we're going to talk about today is kind of crazy. The amount of impressions I get on the Scouted Studios Pinterest is like crazy town. And what I'll tell you guys, to be completely honest, is I haven't done any work on the Scouted Studios Pinterest in years. Most of this content, yep, I'm looking at it right now, 662.4 thousand monthly views. So let's just compare that to Instagram. So what I would say is, with Pinterest, I have been using it for a really long time for the Scouted Studio, but I actually took a really long hiatus, like years of truly posting like pretty much nothing. But the reason it still has so many monthly views is because pins last for forever, and they continue getting saved and they continue getting pinned, and people continue to click out of Pinterest here and onto my website. And the reason I really love Pinterest is, one, it's not your typical social media platform. So like a TikTok or an Instagram, which are wonderful for growing an audience and for being social, Pinterest is an SEO platform. So they are answering its users' questions. And so we'll get into what that means and how to really think about that. But it's not your typical social media platform. It's there to answer users' questions. And it's really the only platform that wants you to leave the platform. So it wants to give you, it's kind of like Google, it wants to give you the absolute best result based on your search or even just what you've searched in the past. Like Pinterest algorithm, that homepage is to die for. Mine is so tailored to me, it's actually kind of creepy. So that's something that's really interesting. But what I love about it is it's great for shopping, because unlike Instagram, which has formulated an algorithm to keep you in the app, and you know, TikTok's the same way. It just wants that scroll. It wants you to stay in their app because that's how they make money. Pinterest actually wants you to leave. It's like a Google. They want to give you the best search result, and then you click on that link and you go to that page. That is succeeding for them. And so I find that really interesting when it comes to sales. Wouldn't you rather be on a platform that wants you to leave the platform? And so I, like I said, have taken a hiatus from Pinterest with the Scouted Studio. I'm definitely picking it back up because of everything I'm going to teach you today and how much I've learned, just its importance. But what I think will be really relevant and what we're going to talk about a lot in the Pinterest workshop is how I've worked to grow, and I'm currently working to grow, the Art Coaching Club Pinterest, because I have grown that. I started taking it seriously, let's say a little bit over a month ago now, and I've experimented in ads, but just looking at organic growth, which I'm also doing live because I want to be super up to date with you, I've gone from pretty much 0 impressions to nearing 17,000 in really like a little over a month. And so that's what I'm so excited to talk to you about in this course, because that's a lot. That is a lot of impressions. And I think we're putting all this pressure on social media and we're burning ourselves out. Whereas Pinterest is really a set it and forget it kind of platform. And I think it's a lot easier. So I'm not saying ditch your social media, but what I'm saying is when it comes to your marketing strategy, understand the role of each platform. And so I like to think of Instagram as kind of your business card. To be honest, I know that sounds crazy and people be like, isn't LinkedIn your business card? I mean, yeah, LinkedIn is like your legitimate resume. But I think of Instagram as a business card because you kind of have to have it as a business owner. And if you're an artist, which I'm sure 99% of you listening are, or creative in some way, if you tell someone about your business, they're going to go to your website and or your Instagram. And more likely they're going to start on your Instagram. So I think of my Instagram as an up-to-date business card. They're going to go there. They're going to decide if they want to follow me or not. They're going to decide if they want to work with me. And so you want those top 9 posts to really show what you're all about. So that's how I think about Instagram. If you're on TikTok, I know not all of you are. I think of TikTok as kind of like the raw, authentic, like personality of my brand. And I think of Pinterest as my brand personified. So, you know, I have boards that are like the homes I want my art in, the clothes I think my client would wear. Hint, hint, it's also the homes I would want to live in and clothes I would love to wear. But because I'm similar to my client in a lot of ways, my ideal customer looks a lot like me. And so I really think of Pinterest as my brand personified. So think if you can put it in that context, that will give you some ideas into what to pin, what pins to create, and what to repin. So that's kind of my just overall intro into Pinterest, but why I think it's so powerful and why you really should consider selling on Pinterest is because it's a visual platform, it's a long-term traffic generator with a very engaged audience, and a very engaged audience that's particularly interested in home improvement, which art falls into that category. So I think that's great. I also want to quickly add, I've worked for 2 different interior designers and both used Pinterest to source ideas, but also to actually purchase. I think a lot of you I've heard are skeptical. And they're like, do people actually like purchase off Pinterest? Yes, I am one of those people that purchase off Pinterest, but I know a lot of interior designers do as well. So definitely keep that in mind. So let's just talk about some basics. What are some baseline things you can do to improve your Pinterest? Optimize your profile. So have a profile page. Like I kind of think of your homepage on your website. That's your first kind of look into who you are and what you do. So you want to have a compelling bio that reflects your artistic style, speaks to buyers, and really just tells people like, who are you? You want to have a nice photo for the profile image, or, you know, it could be your logo, kind of, I would just say mirror Instagram in some ways there. And then you want to have boards that are keyword rich. So just, you can use like ChatGPT to help find keywords. You can look at other people in your niche, but I think you want to have boards that will resonate with your audience and that use those keywords. And then you'll definitely want to make sure once we get into kind of like how to start creating pins that you are linking them to your shop. And you can actually, you want to go ahead and link your Instagram and link your website in Pinterest, because then it'll automatically make sure those pins are linking to your site. Mine does that, and then I just edit like where I specifically want it to link. So all that's really important. Next, let's talk about creating pins that actually make you grow versus just creating a pin to create a pin. High quality images, so important. Obviously, you know, vertical or better, but anytime I have professional photos done, I mean, you can use those a million ways from Sunday, and I throw those in because they're high quality versus, you know, you don't want blurry images. Also, if this is your brand personified, don't you want that person to be crisp and clean and really accurately show what your artwork looks like? Yes. So definitely make sure you're using high quality images. And as I talked about keywords in the boards, you also want to have keyword focused descriptions. And this is what we get into really specifically in the course, because that is how I've worked to grow organically my art coaching club page to, you know, almost 17,000 impressions without ads. And with ads, I think I'm at like 150,000 impressions. So, you know, we'll talk about ads in that course as well. We just don't have enough time for that today. But that keyword focus is what really makes that difference. And then finally, when you're creating these pins, you want to make sure every single pin you create links to a shop page or a blog, or obviously wherever you want them to link. Because if you're just creating a pin and it's getting saved and it's getting moved around, okay, cool. But the reason Pinterest is different is because it's less of a numbers game of how many followers you have. You can sell hundreds of prints, tons of artwork without even having followers on Pinterest, because the way their algorithm works is they're going to get fed your pins whether they follow you or not. Obviously, if they follow you, they'll see more of your stuff. But the reason I think you want to make sure every pin links to your website is because people aren't clicking on pins and then necessarily going to your profile and being like, oh, she looks cool, I'll like check her out. They're looking at the pin. If it answers their question, they want the website to go to get the full answer. And so, and when I say answer their question could be, for example, kitchen decor ideas on a budget, and maybe your prints styled in the kitchen comes up, and then you link to a blog page that talks about styling tips, or you link directly to the product page, or you link to even your Instagram. And so you will always want to have a link in that pin, because that's how that outbound click is what gets that sale. Because a lot of people were asking me recently on Instagram, they go, oh my gosh, I see how much your Pinterest is growing. That's fantastic. Is it actually leading to sales? And what I say is yes. And the reason and the way I really track that is, instead of looking at impressions, which obviously are great, if more people are seeing, if you've 10 people seeing your stuff, you're probably not gonna be selling as much, versus you obviously want eyeballs. And so impressions are a key indicator, but to really see how well your pins are performing inside Pinterest, I look at outbound clicks. So how many people are opening my pin and then actually clicking that link to go to my site, my blog, my product page, whatever it is, because that's actually getting them to my site, which is, the first step. So that's fantastic. So that's a little bit about creating the pins. Let's talk about strategy around how often to pin. So right now I am pinning probably 3 to 5 a day. I've really researched, and some people say 5 to 10. I mean, I think 5 is a good sweet spot. When I think you're first starting out, just do what you can. I mean, any level of consistency is great. The reason I love it is it's not some algorithm like Instagram where you have to post every day, and then if you stop posting, all of a sudden people don't see it, and it's like this whole game of how consistent to post. Pinterest is like, when you post, you'll do well. When you don't, obviously you're going to see a dip, but also those pins live on forever, so it really is a snowball effect. Like, pins I created a month ago are still gaining traction, adding to that overall impressions now. So that's why you're seeing that big spike, or that big, kind of curve in that upward trajectory of my analytics, is because of that snowball effect. So I personally do 3 to 5 pins a day. I use the scheduling tool in Pinterest, but that's what works for me. You can also use something like Tailwind. I've used that in the past. I have not really seen any issues with it in terms of like pins not getting as much traction or views. It's actually how I really grew the Scouted Studio. So we'll talk about that as well in the workshop. But you can use tools like that if they work for you. Right now I'm kind of going the free method and seeing what I can do within Pinterest. And so I use their scheduling tool. But if that's not for you, you think 3 to 5 is completely overwhelming, which again, in this longer workshop, we'll talk about how to really make the most of your time. Start with 1. Start with a couple a week. Like, really start where you can, and just know everything you do is adding to this overall growth. The pins last forever, so every single thing you do now will help you in the future. We will talk specifically about SEO in the workshop, because I think that's so important. That's something we can really deep dive in. But when I keep talking about keywords and you want them in your descriptions and your titles and your board titles and your bio, that's because Pinterest is a search engine. So I'm going to keep coming back to that idea. It's not social media, it is a search engine. So you want your stuff to be searchable. And the thing that I love about Pinterest is I go on there every single morning and I just look through my homepage, because my homepage is so aspirational, so beautiful, so me. And I repin, this is another question I get a lot, how often do you repin? I repin stuff that resonates with my brand, because it helps to tell that brand story. I mean, I don't know as much of the research on this, but I do assume Pinterest wants you to use their platform as it's intended to be used, not just always pumping out your own stuff. I also think as a coach, a lot of the pins I'm creating are photos of me. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to feed that's just all me. Obviously, those are what convert, but I think it's nice to also pin other people's things that relate. So, I am pinning home content and clothing content and artist tips. Like I'm not the only person that has artist tips out there. So I am repinning other people's stuff, just things I like. Like I'm really not overthinking it. And I do that every morning just because I like Pinterest and I go on it. But for you, it's like you could do it when you are creating your pins and scheduling all of that. There's no cadence to that. That's just what works for me because I'm on the platform anyway. Other things to think about when it comes to Pinterest is to really consider the analytics. That also is something I check in with every single day. I don't think you need to check in with it every single day. But the reason I do is because I'm actively trying to grow my Pinterest right now more than other platforms. Like I think people hear this and they're like, oh my gosh, Haley's on Instagram, she's on TikTok, she's on Pinterest, she has an email list. Like, that's crazy. I will tell you, I dive really deep into a platform and then I kind of take a break from it. So you'll see, like, I really got in a rhythm with Reels on Instagram for a while, and now I can make them so quickly and so efficiently. It opened the door for me to experiment with Pinterest. So if you're still, if this sounds overwhelming to you, you don't have to be everywhere all the time, all at once. I'm such a fan of diving really deep into a platform and getting it perfected to the point where it's easy for you, or you've automated it, or you can offload it. I do have an assistant. I'm super open about that. So I just want to put that little caveat in there because I don't want you to feel like you have to be active on every single platform all the time because that's so overwhelming. So what I would say is, circling back to analytics, because that was a sidebar, I do check in every day, but that's because I'm actively growing Pinterest. I think you could just check in, from time to time. There's no need to check it every day. But things to look for is obviously impressions is a great indicator because, as I mentioned before, impressions is how many people are just seeing your stuff. So that's a great if people are seeing it and it's being put in front of people, that means, one, my keywords, descriptions, this work I'm doing is working to get my pins in the algorithm. It's getting in front of people. Part two, it also means it's getting in front of people. They're looking at it, clicking on it, whatever. And so it's getting put in front of more people because, they're continuing to interact with it. So if a pin has a ton of impressions, it means something I did with those keywords, that image, what have you, is working. So that's a really important indicator. Also, saves is obviously great because that means people want to save it to their own board. So it's resonating with your ideal client. And that's also telling you what kind of things they repin. I don't look at that as much because I'm less worried about, I love saves for the Scouted Studio. So I think a lot of you should look at saves in terms of artwork because that tells you your artwork is falling in line with design trends, what people like. They're saving it to their board. They love your style. That's kind of the indicator. For my art coaching, I don't look at it as much because I don't think people are saving as much of my content because it's less visual. I'm more interested in outbound clicks because I'm like, I want them to go to the podcast. A picture of me and a guest isn't really telling them that much. So for you, I think you can look at saves probably more so in terms of, okay, this is a check in the right direction that people like my work visually. Then let's move on to the analytics of outbound clicks. As I mentioned this before, I love looking at outbound clicks because it says this is working. People like it, they open the pin, and they click to your website. And that's really an indication that Pinterest is leading people where you want them to go, whatever that link was that you initially set up. And so you want to look at the analytics because you want to see ultimately what's performing best, and you want to adjust your strategy based on those engagement metrics. So that way you can, see what pins do really well. I honestly just kind of ignore the pins that don't do well. I'm like, okay, whatever. But the pins that do really well, I'm like, let's create more like that. Like I noticed a specific type of podcast pin, a specific design, the way it just had the artist's photo, their information, it just always tended to do well organically. And so what I did was two things. I made ads for pins like that because it was proven they already were doing well. So let's do an ad and push it in front of more people. And then I also created a lot more pins like that, and that has really helped boost, it makes sense. It's helped boost my Pinterest overall. So that is something I would definitely keep in mind as well. So I hope this is helpful for you to at least encourage you to consider Pinterest. If you already have a Pinterest, you can clean it up, and we'll talk about how to clean up a current Pinterest and make it targeted for your customer. If you don't have a Pinterest, I really started the Art Coaching Club from zero, so we're gonna talk about how to do that as well. So just to kind of recap the key points, we are going to cover, and we covered today, optimizing your Pinterest profile, how to create good pins, pinning consistently. We're gonna talk more about SEO, keywords, all that good stuff, how to do that in the course. I keep saying course, it's like a workshop. And then we'll talk more about analytics, more of a deep dive there. And then what I'm really excited about in this course for all of this, for all of you that this sounds really overwhelming, we're gonna talk about how to optimize your time so you're not spending hours and hours and hours every week on Pinterest, because that's not great either. At the end of the day, my goal is to get artists back in the studio doing what they love: painting, creating, drawing, illustrating, collaging, not behind their computer screen. I want you doing the deep work that you want to be doing. So I hope this encourages you to reconsider Pinterest if you wrote it off. I also hope it makes you consider the Pinterest workshop. And as a thank you for listening, I am going to include a 20% discount in the show notes exclusively for this audience. So check out the show notes. You can use that discount code on the workshop, and I hope to see you there. I also hope this was really helpful for you. I love this audience. I love just being able to help you guys grow your businesses, and that comes through sharing what has worked and definitely what has not worked for me. So I will be back next Tuesday with an artist interview, but I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Talk to you then.